Okay, so far we've been talking about the greatest common factor. Now we're actually going to use the idea of greatest common factor in polynomials. Now, polynomials are basically many terms. Poly means many, nomials means terms. In mathematics, terms are those things separated with a plus or minus. So here for question 43, I have a polynomial with four terms. Now we call it quadnomial because it has four terms, but the idea of this thing is it says factor the common factor out of each expression. And we tend to factor the greatest common factor. So when I look at my numbers, 40, 60, 10, and 50, I believe we can see that I can divide them all by 10. So to begin with, I'm going to say, let me divide everything by 10. I'm going to put a 10 out here. Letter-wise, in order for me to remove a letter, they should all have a letter, but in this case, they don't. The last term doesn't have a letter, so I'm not going to be able to remove a letter. But if they all do have a letter, I remove the smallest exponent, okay? Another thing is that basically when we remove the greatest common factor out, so we've been working on finding the greatest common factor. Now, when we remove it, we're going to have a parentheses, and everything that is left, we're going to have it inside the parentheses. So technically, we're going to be doing the distributive property backwards. We worked at distributive property before, and so now in this case, we're doing a distributive property backwards. The inside of the parentheses should start with a positive. So what I'm going to do is when my first term has a negative sign, on my greatest common factor, I'm also going to remove the negative sign. So I'm going to divide every number, I'm going to divide it by negative 10. So what does that mean? I'm going to divide by 10 and switch the sign. So I'm going to have inside the parentheses, remember I'm dividing each number by negative 10. So inside the parentheses, I'm going to have 4 n to the fourth minus 6 n to the third. Remember, I divided by 10 and switched the sign. So that's why I have a negative 6 plus 1n. We usually don't write the 1 in front of a letter, so I'm just going to write n, and then plus 5. Remember, I'm dividing everything by 10. Every number I'm dividing by 10 and switching the sign. I want the first number inside my parentheses to be positive. That's it. That's all I do. Now let's take a look at question number 44. Now I have a polynomial with only two terms. And then I look at number-wise, 27 and 45. So we learn how to find the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor, the biggest number I can divide 27 and 45 by will be 9. So number-wise, I'm going to factor out a 9. I'm going to divide everything by 9. Now, I notice that every term has a letter. The smallest exponent is n to the third. So I'm going to write n to the third. So we learned that this was the greatest common factor. Now when it says factor it out, again, I'm going to have parentheses. So for every numbered, I'm going to divide it by 9. When it comes to exponents on my ends, I'm going to subtract 3 from each exponent, okay? So that's going to give me, let's see, the first term is 27 n to the third. So 27 divided by 9 is 3. N, subtract 3 from the exponent. I have n to the 0, so I don't have an n anymore. And there's a plus sign. Number-wise, 45 divided by 9 is 5. Subtract 3 from the exponent. I'm left off with n to the 1. And that's it. Let's take a look at question number 45. Number-wise, I can divide everything by 3. So I'm going to divide it by 3. Letter-wise, the smallest exponent is n to the second. So I'm going to divide everything by 3, and I'm going to subtract 2 from each exponent. Let me open my parentheses. Oops. So let me open my parentheses. So divide by 3. So the first number, 3 divided by 3 is 1. I'm not going to write it unless I don't have any letters. But then I take a look at the letters. N squared, subtract 2, so I don't have an n anymore. So yeah, in this case, I will have to write the 1. We don't write a 1 with the letter, but this case, I don't have a letter. So yeah, I'm going to have to write a 1. Then there's a plus sign. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then subtract 2 from the exponent, so I'm going to have n to the second. Close my parentheses. All right, let's take a look at our last example. Number-wise, I can divide everything by 5. Letter-wise, I can factor out an m squared. Because my first term is a negative, I'm also going to factor out a negative sign. I want my parentheses to start with a positive value. All right, so number-wise, divide by -5. Letter-wise, subtract 2 from the exponents. So let's see my first term. Number-wise, -45 divided by -5 gives me 9. Letter-wise, m to the 6. Remember, I subtracted 2 from the exponent. The next term, 45 divided by -5 gives me -9. Letter-wise, m to the second. Lastly, -5 divided by -5 is 1. And then letter-wise, I don't have anything. So my 1, I do have to write it because I don't have letters. Okay, that's it. That's all we do for today.